But nobody is safe, not even former WWE champions. That was the other big story this week. Alberto Del Rio released by WWE. Put an announcement up on the website on Thursday that said WWE announced the release of Alberto Del Rio due to unprofessional conduct and an altercation with an employee. And about a day or two later, on the WWE official Twitter account, there were two messages that were sent that talked about, basically, don't blame us, blame Alberto for acting unprofessionally. And it was very weird to see those kind of tweets sent from the WWE account. Triple H then retweeted them. And when I saw this, my spidey senses started tingling. I can't be 100% sure if this is legit or not. It seems legit. I'm going to guess that it is. I think that it is. Could it be a work? Sure. It's possible. It's just very bizarre the way that they handle this online. It's very different than normal circumstances when somebody is let go. But this is a different circumstance altogether because there was an incident that took place. This was not just, well, we don't need him anymore, and so we wish him well in his future endeavors. He did something that he shouldn't have done, and they fired him for it. So it's entirely possible that it's a work. I don't think it is. I guess we'll find out on Monday night, because if there's any mention of Del Rio at all on that show, we'll know. And for the people saying, well, what sense would it make for it to be a work? I put nothing past these people. Look, I mean, if they wanted to do something out of the ordinary to get this guy going, Del Rio has been ice cold for a while now. He's had nothing going on at all. If they wanted to get him going, and what does Triple H call this? The reality era? Whatever the hell that means? I would not be surprised. Nothing like that at all anymore would surprise me. So yes, it's possible. But assuming that this is all legit, the details of what happened have kind of sort of leaked out. There's multiple stories about what happened, but essentially what it sounds like happened is he slapped somebody with WWE's social media department at TV this past week. I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, but backstage one of those nights, he smacked somebody that he shouldn't have smacked. It may have been their social media director, this guy by the name of Corey Clayton, although I don't know if that's actually 100% confirmed or not. I've seen his name floating around. So, allegedly, there was a joke made in catering by the social media guy, whoever it was, about cleaning his plate off and how that's actually Del Rio's job. It was a racist joke. Del Rio found out about it. He tracked the guy down and confronted him and asked him to apologize. And when the guy didn't apologize, and supposedly the guy not only did not apologize, he may have actually smiled or smirked, that's when Del Rio smacked him. Now, if that version of events is pretty much how it went down, I don't know that I would have smacked the guy, but there would have been trouble. Del Rio opted to slap him. I can understand that. At the end of the day, you can't go around smacking people at work, as tempting as that may sometimes be, I think, for all of us. So right now, with all the cost-cutting going on, they're looking for a reason to drop people, and he made it very easy for them to get rid of him. Now, had this happened a year ago, who knows? Who knows if the same thing would have happened? Maybe it would have just been a suspension. But times are different now. He did what he did. He's gone. There's a lot of people coming to Del Rio's defense. And again, we're just assuming that this version of events is true. It makes Del Rio almost look like a hero that he stood up to the guy. Del Rio is not a guy that you want to be messing around with either. He's a legit tough guy. So I'm having a hard time reconciling this in my head. If it is this social media guy, and if it is the guy whose name I mentioned, I've seen pictures of him online, the idea that he would make a crack and Del Rio would confront him angrily about it and he would refuse to apologize, it's a little far-fetched to me, but that seems to be the story that's going around as told by people in the locker room. It's just happenstance that Ricardo Rodriguez was released a week earlier, so both Ricardo and Del Rio, I guess pending their 90-day non-competes, now become free agents at the same time. I don't know what Del Rio's plans are, but it would make sense for the two of them to link up and go somewhere together as a package. They never should have been split up in the first place. I said that last week when I was talking about Ricardo on the podcast. TNA, for all the fun people make at their expense about how they're quick to snatch up ex-WWE talent, Dave Meltzer first reported that night, only a few hours after the news broke online that Del Rio had been fired, TNA was asking around for his phone number, trying to get in touch with him to bring up the possibility of putting the TNA title on him. That was the goal. They wanted to get in touch with him. They wanted to find out what was going on, see maybe if they could bring him aboard and possibly give him the belt. Meltzer wasn't being facetious. He was being serious. And I can totally believe that. You know, there's a nasty term called a star fucker that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's not a nice word. That's kind of what TNA has always been. You know, the people running TNA have always been star fuckers when it comes to ex-WWE guys, MMA fighters, reality show stars. So, of course, they would be interested in Alberto Del Rio. Honestly, in this case, I think Del Rio and Ricardo, as a package deal, could be a good addition to TNA. Now, can TNA afford them? Will TNA even be around in 90 days? That's the bigger question. I think they will be. I still think they're getting renewed by Spike. You know, Kevin Kay, the president of Spike TV, was at the tapings in New York on Thursday. He was shaking hands with some of the wrestlers. He was meeting everybody. That tells me negotiations are still ongoing, and it's not a dead deal yet. That's a positive sign for TNA. Okay, there's a lot of other factors working against them at the moment. Like, even if they re-sign with Spike, will they be getting the same amount of money? Probably not. Can they survive on less? And then there's the issue of SmackDown, possibly moving to Thursday nights, which I'll talk about later. So I'm not even sure how realistic that is, that they would bring him in, but they were looking to get in contact with him mere hours after the news broke. So the interest is there. But boy, they sure didn't waste any time, did they? They are star fuckers. That is what they are. There's also the possibility of Ring of Honor. I don't see that happening. There's Jeff Jarrett's promotion, which keeps on announcing partnerships. It's like every day there's a new partnership that Global Force Wrestling announces, and yet they've announced nothing about a TV deal. Another week of no news. There's AAA, one of the two big promotions in Mexico. Del Rio competed there over a decade ago. They're expanding into the U.S. this fall. They're having a show on the El Rey Network later this year. I could see Del Rio being very attractive to them. He's got international name recognition now. Obviously, he's Mexican, but from all those years in WWE, traveling all over the world, being a world champion, he's got the name value. He's a face that people know. So we'll see. You know, he hasn't commented publicly on this yet. Maybe he can't legally. I'm very curious what his next move will be. As far as him in WWE, I've made no secret of the fact I call him, you know, Alberto Del Jabo, because that's how he's been booked. There's nothing appealing about the Del Rio character right now in WWE. They've done nothing with him. I said earlier, he's ice cold. Is this a work to try to get him going again with some kind of, you know, reality angle? I don't know. And I don't even know that it would work, quite frankly. But they've done nothing with the guy. Ever since they broke him and Ricardo up, it's just been downhill from there. They took away everything that made his character interesting, everything that gave his character some flair and just separated him from everybody else. It was Ricardo, okay, having his personal ring announcer, and the cars. That was part of the whole package, and they stripped all of that away from him. Now, I know why they took the cars away, because they turned him babyface, and it was kind of a douchey move, I guess, to come out driving the nice car, a little pretentious, so they took that away. They sped up his entrance music. They gave him little Mexican flags, I think, to take down to the ring with him. It was kind of goofy. But once he turned heel and the babyface run failed, which it did, they should have gone back to the old entrance. You know, and I know he beat the hell out of Ricardo, so it would have been somewhat odd to put the two of them back together, but it's wrestling. You could always come up with a reason why. You know, Ricardo just, you know, he's like this indentured servant. He can't not be without Alberto. He doesn't know what to do with himself. You know, he's just got no life. He's got no family. Whatever the story is that you want to come up with, and you put the two of them back together. It's not like they were doing anything with Ricardo. He had that failed combo with Rob Van Dam, which was a complete joke looking back on that. They tried to turn him into an announcer. They already had two Spanish-language announcers. They didn't really need him there. He would put the mask on as El Local and do some wrestling under the mask, and apparently they didn't really care much for that. So why not put the two of them back together? But they never did. Del Rio, to me, when I look back, if this really is it for him in WWE, I look at him as just never reaching his full potential. They wanted him so badly to be the next great Latin superstar that kind of Eddie Guerrero was, I guess, in a different era, but maybe even bigger than that. They really wanted him to appeal to that audience, and they had high hopes for him. And they had high hopes for him when they brought him in as a babyface. When he first came in, he was a heel, but long term, they wanted him as this great big babyface character. So eventually they saw an opening, they turned him babyface. I remember when he won the World Heavyweight title from Big Show on SmackDown. I think they had a last man standing match. It was in January, maybe 2 years ago, maybe? I forgot what year it was, but that was one of the best matches I've seen Del Rio have. Not just in terms of pure wrestling, he probably had better matches with Ziggler and Sheamus and all that, but in terms of the emotion, and that was a big win. I remember when he won the title that night, the place went nuts. As a matter of fact, I think, I want to say Webmaster Mike might have been at that taping. So it just feels like ever since then, it was all downhill. He had the feud with Swagger. I was at WrestleMania 29. What a dud of a match that turned out to be. The very next night, Ziggler cashed in Money in the Bank. People went nuts. They didn't give two craps about Alberto Del Rio. They never gave us a reason to. The guy would come out, he would have 5,000 matches with Dolph Ziggler. He'd have 8,000 matches with Sheamus. How many freaking times can you put these two people, the same combination of guys, in the ring together before you just go, enough? You throw your hands up in the air. It's like, I don't care anymore. I don't care who wins. I don't care who loses. I just don't want to see this match ever again. And that's kind of where I was at with Del Rio. I just did not care. I was kind of amused when he had that one time, that match on Raw with the original Sin Cara, and I think I think Sin Cara broke his finger, or I think he dislocated it. He may have dislocated a finger. And Del Rio had no love lost with the original Sin Cara back from their days in Mexico. He just didn't like the guy. He didn't like him when he first came into WWE. He thought he was pompous. He thought he was full of himself. So I remember that match and Del Rio kind of being backed off by the referee. And Del Rio just got really pissed off, even though the guy was legitimately injured. And he threw him back in the ring and he started kicking the crap out of him. And the referee, I've never seen a referee get this forceful with a wrestler before. He shoved Del Rio back into the corner like, hey, dude, he's hurt. Enough. But Del Rio was just incensed at the fact that this guy would stop the match because he had a little finger injury. So he had a little bit of a mean streak in him. I could see him losing his temper. But again, it goes back to not reaching his full potential. Here's a guy who won the Royal Rumble, the biggest Rumble ever, 40 men. Okay, he won the Royal Rumble. He won the World Heavyweight Championship multiple times. He won the WWE Championship. He may have been the first Mexican-born WWE champion of all time. I think he was, actually, because I don't think Eddie was born in Mexico. He was Mexican-American, I believe. I think same thing with Ray. I could be completely wrong here, but I believe Del Rio may have been the first. So he had a lot of accomplishments. He accomplished a lot. When you look at his run in WWE over the last 3 or 4 years, he actually, he reached the top there a few times, and he had a lot of pay-per-view main events and matches with guys like John Cena and CM Punk, and he never felt to me like a legitimate main event star guy in that company. The face run was a bomb, and as a heel, he just never got over at that level, so he never reached his full potential. And I don't know if it's just, you could blame him, you could blame WWE, you could blame the presentation, you could probably blame a whole lot of different things. To me, he never got to that level, despite all of those accomplishments that I just ran off. I never looked at him as being that big of a deal. So to me, it's not a huge loss for WWE. It's another, mid to upper card star gone, at a time when they need more stars, not less. Maybe it opens up a spot for somebody down at NXT. If they want somebody with, of Latin descent or whatever, they want to bring him up to the roster. Kalisto is certainly, I think, more than ready to come up. He hasn't been down at NXT for very long, but he's great, and I could see them trying to plug him in there as somebody to fill the role that Del Rio once had and Rey Mysterio once had, because Sin Cara certainly is not gonna fill that role. Maybe they bring up Kalisto. Maybe they just bring up somebody else from NXT. There's been rumors of Sami Zayn and the Ascension and other people they're going to bring up. So maybe him being gone opens up a spot for somebody else who can make the most of it, because Del Rio is on a path to nowhere. That's why I say him leaving is not that big of a deal. He wasn't really involved in any current storylines. He was just kind of there.